Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode of Ben Talks About. I'm of course your host, Ben Contreras. And with Halloween being over, I think it's about time that I make a video concerning quite a lot of, I guess you could say, news that has been going on in pop culture recently. Whether it be leaks or trailers for upcoming movies or games. I just decided to make a video on, you know, a lot of these things. Now, the first one in particular that I want to discuss is actually a subject I've actually covered before on this channel, and involves a certain Blue Blur and his attempts to make it into Hollywood. Yes, we are once again talking about the controversial film that is the live-action adaptation of Sonic the Hedgehog. Now, the previous time I mentioned this movie that has been in production for quite a while now, I covered what many other people covered, which was Sonic's design, or what we assumed would be Sonic's new design. And of course, I showed off, one of the leaked images that was pretty much proven to be completely false, which kind of made me sad, because now I don't necessarily look very fondly at that video. But regardless of such, as the months passed by, more and more information was given to us about the movie, with several screenshots and images of what Sonic's design would eventually be, and then a while back we actually got ourselves a trailer, which hasn't really been touched upon ever since the huge boom, I guess you could say, of people constantly, discussing it and all of that. Mostly, of course, concerning Sonic's design, and it is most definitely not the best looking. Granted, I knew for a fact that it wasn't going to be one for one like his video game counterpart, but they could have done a much, much better job at capturing how Sonic should actually look. But really, that's the only thing that I could really find wrong with the trailer. It's Sonic's design, because his voice sounded perfectly fine, and his personality seems like how Sonic should be. And of course, you got all the human characters. You of course have, Jim Carrey playing Dr. Eggman, which I don't really have much of an opinion on, since the only movies I've ever seen with Jim Carrey in them is The Mask and Batman Forever. But regardless of such, after the trailer came out, many people began to backlash the movie. All of course concerning Sonic's design, and I think probably the most positive thing to come out of all of this is that I believe the director on his Twitter actually posted that because of all the critiques that they've been getting about the trailer, they actually decided to go ahead and redesign Sonic to have it be more accurate to what people were probably expecting. And then a couple of weeks back, we actually got ourselves a actual leaked image, not of necessarily the movie itself, but of one of those cardboard standees that you always see in movie theaters for upcoming movies that you can interact with and take pictures with and all that stuff. Someone went ahead and took a picture of one of those, which actually gave us a glimpse at what Sonic's new design would be. And it is most definitely an improvement over what we saw back in the trailer. Granted, it's still not the most accurate it could be. There have been several Sonic fans who have been able to redesign it themselves to more accurately, show what a live-action Sonic could be. But for what they actually did, they actually did do a very good job at capturing how Sonic's overall anatomy should be, which I believe now people have given, the Sonic community has given a little bit more faith in this film, mostly because of the fact that Sonic won't be extremely difficult to look at. It's the same thing, with Detective Pikachu. You'd think that, a video game movie adaptation of something like Pokemon wouldn't necessarily work, especially with all the quite odd designs for all the creatures, but they ended up actually looking rather nice, and the movie did pretty well because of that. Of course, with it being an actual good movie in general. So, who knows, maybe this has become the start of a sort of renaissance for video game to live action movie adaptations. But of course, only time will tell. Which, by the way, when are we eventually going to get a second trailer for this live action Sonic movie? Because the one trailer that we've been given, of course, left a bad taste in everyone's mouth. I'm wondering if they're gonna when they're gonna eventually release a new trailer showing off Sonic's new design, and any other sort of things that we could learn from the actual movie. But again, only time will tell. And speaking of trailers for things that are based off of video games, I believe it was actually a few days ago, or it may have possibly been even less time, where we got ourselves a trailer for the upcoming anime adaptation of Game Freak's long-running series of RPGs, Pokemon. Of course, this one being the anime adaptation for the upcoming Nintendo Switch games, Pokemon Sword and Pokemon Shield. Now, the trailer did just come out. We have been getting like bits and pieces of what this anime would be like, and we've gotten screenshots of Ash's design, and of course one of his new partners in the game. Well, not the game, the series. And I went ahead and I watched this trailer today, and I think one of the main things that people would normally be concerned about is the art style, because ever since the anime app series for Pokemon Sun and Moon was released, one of the major complaints that a lot of people had at first was the new art style. More specifically on how it, on the looks of, Ash and, other returning characters like Professor Oak, Jesse and James from Team Rocket, and all that stuff. These characters who have been in a rather consistent art style from the Kanto series all the way up to X and Y. Granted, there have been some changes to the art style, but they still were more recognizable compared to, how they looked in the Sun and Moon series. But I feel like this is an example of not, you shouldn't be judging the book by its cover. In this case, you shouldn't be judging the anime teaser that we got from the art style. Now, I personally never saw the series for Sun and Moon, but from what I heard, there actually was a lot of people who were fans of the series. There are some really there were some episodes that really had some very feel-good moments, and despite not knowing very much about the series, I do know that there are like several like tear-jerking episodes out in there. So, seeing the Sword and Shield art style for the series, it definitely looks a lot more like the Sun and Moon series, which, again, I guess sort of makes sense. If you're going to create a new art style, you may as well try to stick with it as much as possible. And aside from the character designs, for all the older characters, a lot of the newer characters actually look perfectly fine in the new style. But that's mostly because of the fact that, they're being made from the ground up, whereas characters like Ash have been built up since the beginning of the series. So, what exactly is going to happen in the series? We can't exactly determine, because the games themselves, Sword and Shield, haven't even been released yet. So, much like the Sonic movie, only time will tell whether or not this series is actually good or whether it's bad. And speaking of Pokemon Sword and Shield, there have actually been quite a few leaks concerning the game. Similarly to how how Sun and Moon was like all those things about that game were leaked, and people managed to get like pirated copies of the game, which really caused the whole issue where Nintendo made it so that people who had the pirated copies of the game weren't able to access anything online. But for this, it seemed like there were a lot of designs for the new Pokemon that weren't shown yet, that people managed to find out about. Whether or not these are real, I'm not exactly sure, but I feel like this, if this is real, then this leak alone has probably gotten people more excited compared to the majority of the stuff that Nintendo's shown off, because, Sword and Shield has become sort of a meme in and of itself because of the gameplay and the overall graphics and gameplay mechanics that have been shown have gotten quite a bit of controversy. More specifically, the fact that there is the lack of a national dex, where every single possible Pokemon could eventually be found and put into the Pokedex. It seems like this game is going to make it so that the only ones that are available are the ones that are available by default in that region. So only a few Pokemon from the previous generations are going to be in this new one. Which, while I can understand why people would be upset about that, it makes sense that you can't put, like, that many Pokemon into the game without, compromising with a few things. And, the other sort of memes that have been made because of all the teasers and screenshots that have been shown, just showing off how, the graphics don't exactly seem up to stuff compared to what, they could possibly do on the Nintendo Switch. But, that was very, very early gameplay. I think the fact that we haven't seen a whole lot of new gameplay recently, aside from a couple teases at some new Pokemon in different forms of pre-existing Pokemon, I think that sort of goes to show that they're trying their best to do some improvements, which, is very admirable for, a game company to actually listen to what the people want. But, yeah, there has been, Nintendo has very, rarely, shown much stuff for Sword and Shield officially. It's only a few days before the games actually come out. And we haven't even gotten, into all the gym leaders, what the overall story is going to be about, and, a majority of the new Pokemon that are going to be in this new regional Pokedex, and, a lot of the stuff that we would normally have information about, even like the evolutions for the starters, we don't even have anything relating to that aside from the supposed leaks, which, I'm personally not even sure if they're real or not. But if they are real, like I said, this is probably the most excited that Nintendo's possibly been for Sword and Shield. But, only time will tell if, whether or not these leaks were actually real, and if these new Pokemon designs were real, and all of that. But, the Pokemon game should be a lot more than just, wondering what these new Pokemon are going to look like. There's a lot more to the games that I feel like Nintendo's been trying to slowly, make more and more important. I feel like that's the most prominent when you look at games like Sun and Moon, and to an extent Ultra Sun and Moon, as they tried to put more of an emphasis on story rather than, catching all the Pokemon. So, yeah, I'm overall rather excited to see where all these three different subjects go. Whether or not the Sonic movie is gonna be like Detective Pikachu, whether or not the Sword and Shield anime is going to be, something that people can enjoy, and also if Sword and Shield ends up being a good game, only time will tell whether these are actually going to be good. So, I hope you all enjoyed me taking a look at me making this sort of quote-unquote news-related video. I actually had quite a bit of fun discussing these sort of things. I don't really talk about this kind of stuff that often, but there are a lot of different subjects that I would like to talk about. And if you enjoyed this, make sure to tell me in the comment section down below, how you felt about the video, and all that kind of stuff. You know how